President is doomed if he does. He is doomed if he doesn't. I hear yesterday a majority of the bloggers and the media had prepared, two headlines. One for a spike in terms of petrol prices. There was nothing in terms of decline, and one for stabilization. And I get interested. It's very interesting when you listen to conversations in this country, because as I said in my opening statement yesterday, including the Senate Majority Leader was on tenterhooks. He was actually saying EPRA is punishing us by delaying the announcement of prices. And if you recall last time, we still had the same anticipation as a country. And it appears that the 14th of every month is initially we would wait for payday as Kenyans. You wait for the day you get paid. But it appears now 14th is a very important date in the calendar of Kenyans.
Yes.
We the whole country I mean, even 14th now is more apprehensive than the Belmas.
I'll tell you
we need a choir. We need a choir for 14th.
And that's why he said that we are supposed to put a legislation for the date 14. So tunaambiwa mambo mapema.
So, and you can imagine why, because fuel is a driver of the economy. And it more or less affects everything else. But let me say this, Simba. One, we are a country that imports everything that we use. And I was telling someone the other day, you look at yourself today the way you are dressed. 80% of everything you're wearing comes from abroad. It is bought on the dollar. 80% of, in fact, it could be 100%. The only thing that could belong to this country is maybe yourself. But everything else you're wearing, we have imported from other countries. And why is that important? It is important because then that would mean that we use most of our resources to get basic stuff from outside, including the fuel that we are buying. Now, Kenya does not produce any fuel. Sometimes there is room for political debate, and there is equally room for us to tell Kenyans the truth. And what is this truth? The truth is that so long as we are going to continue importing fuel, and so long as we'll continue importing refined petroleum products, we will always import costs from other countries. And I always say this, our collective historical ineptitude cannot be corrected in 1 year. And what do I mean? We had a refinery that used to work in Mombasa.
Yes.
Right now, if you get crude oil and refine for yourself, costs are likely to come down. But what did we do as Kenyans and as politicians? We ran down the facility. The facility is no longer working. And therefore, so long as we continue importing refined products, we will always import inflated costs. Now, that is not to say that sometimes there isn't room for manipulation. There could be room for manipulation. But you can only manipulate to a certain extent. If you import at X, you can only manipulate above X. So that means you still have to contend with the baseline. And therefore, I would ask Kenyans, there is something government introduced, stabilization program. And stabilization is different from subsidy. And I'll explain how. You see, in subsidy, there is always room for theft, because you are paid after selling. So what that means is that Simba will say, I have sold 200,000 liters of fuel. Government has no way of verifying whether that's actually true or not. And that is what you will claim as subsidy from government. Now, in stabilization, you stabilize from source. You say, okay, we are importing oil at X. And remember, we have G to G. So at X, what the OMCs will buy, you stabilize at the source of purchase. Okay? So that means that the cost is likely the cost is likely to be passed on to the buyer because fuel is a regulated product. And I hope we'll also get time to discuss about Anne and her billions.
Yeah, of course.
And why her story is also a facade.
Yes.
But we'll discuss that.
Yes.
So it is therefore to say that Kenyans, let's brace ourselves for even harder economic times.
Yes.
And one thing I love about Mudavadi, you know, Mudavadi is a quiet man and he speaks softly. But Mudavadi said we are in this for the next 3 years. And I want to tell Kenyans, especially when I see the dalliance between the ministers, the cabinet secretaries, economic advisors, and IMF, I know we are in this for the long haul.
Yes.
Because it appears that the prescription IMF has given us as Kenyans, we are taking it hook, line, and sinker. We are taking the prescription. In fact, sometimes I feel even our own policymakers are overzealous. Where IMF has prescribed 1 times 3, we are taking 1 times 4.
Ragallo, can you allow me not to ask you this?